book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to recommend some books that are 300 pages or under. If you didn't know, this is a 7 on Sunday topic, and I am the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can check it out and you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. This week's topic was inspired by the fact that we did the shortest books on our TBR sometime as of recently, and I didn't think to do a short books recommendation topic shortly after until recently. So I decided to add this onto the list of topics, and I have a few short books to recommend. Majority of the time, if of course I'm not reading any manga or graphic novels, I tend to read chunkier books or like average sized books. I would say my average bookish page count when it comes to my reading tends to be somewhere between like around 325 to 600 pages. I tend to favor average sized books, but slightly longer books depending on the book or series or genre, really. I mean, I don't tend to lean toward 600 page contemporary novels, but when it comes to, like, let's say a fantasy or a fantasy romance, I would lean toward a 600 page novel. However, in terms of the romantic fiction novels that I like to read, I prefer them to be at around a 350 page count because I know that the story isn't too rushed and it's not too long either. But anyway, I need to bring myself back on track. Today, I'm going to be talking about the books that are under 300 pages that I actually really liked and I do recommend. And that I would recommend if you are wanting to complete some reading challenges, a readathon, or you are just wanting some quick reads because you don't tend to like the more dense ones. So I guess without further ado, let's get straight into this list. So these first two books are in a series, and this here might look deceiving, but this is a bind up of two novels right here. I am talking about the Ruled by Blood series by May Sage. Both books in this series are under 300 pages. The entire series is around like 550 to 600 pages, which is pretty cool because that's kind of rare. I personally prefer longer book series, and I did want this book series to be a little bit longer, but I did find it ultimately satisfying at the end of the day, and this is probably my favorite series by May Sage that I've read so far. Actually, it's the only series I've read by May Sage so far, but I have read another book by May Sage as well. Actually, funnily enough, May Sage often writes shorter books, but this series right here, this duology, Ruled by Blood, was very much a satisfactory story, and if anything, if you were wanting to read it essentially as one book, you could read it as one book with two parts, but there are two books within the series. If you were wanting a quick and easy fae political fantasy, then I would recommend the series. If you don't find yourself engaged by the first book, then you could always just finish the first book and be done with that. But I would recommend the full series. I really liked both books. And the fact that this story was condensed into like 550, 600 pages in two books, it's kind of cool. And the next short book I have to recommend is actually kind of the opposite from what I've just recommended. This is a novella that doesn't take place within a series, but it does have magical elements, and that, my friends, is What the Hex by Alexis Daria. If you guys didn't know, Alexis Daria is the author of You At Me at Ola and a few other romance novels. This, I believe, was initially an Audible original novella that you could listen to, and then it might have been adapted into text. I'm not too sure which came first, but what I do know is that this is an independent paperback that I got for $6 on Amazon, and I could not pass this up. It is literally only 115 pages. Yeah. Wow, that's also including the acknowledgements and everything. Very short story. It is definitely a cozy one. This one I would recommend for either a readathon read or just something to pick you up after reading something really dense. This was very fun. There was a little bit of spice in it, and I also kind of liked the setting. Pretty much we are following two characters in the lead up to a wedding where the groom accidentally gets possessed by a demon and they have to defeat that demon. And it was a very fun adventure, and I kind of wish that it was longer, but that all being said, it was a good, perfect, quick read. So I would recommend it if you're wanting a good, cozy, quick read where hijinks ensue. And speaking of romance, I have a romance contemporary that just so happens to be under 300 pages, and that, my friends, is Chase Me by Tessa Bailey. This is one of Tessa Bailey's earlier works. I believe this novel came out back in 2015, and I really enjoyed it. We follow a female protagonist who is an actress trying to get work, and a male love interest who is a lawyer who's trying to do good for his community. It was very interesting to see where Tessa Bailey came from. I think this is the earliest work I've ever read by Tessa Bailey, and I did find it quite fascinating because I noticed she still has some of that spice and flair. In fact, I think the passion in her novels is a lot more fiery now than it used to be, but I still enjoyed this. However, I do have to point out that the third act breakup slash resolution happened a little bit too quickly. I kind of wish that it was a little bit longer. This still made a perfect quick read, and I really enjoyed the plot for the most part. And yes, there were dated references in here, like when I believe one of the characters is calling out saying, look, there's James Franco. These days, that would not land as a distraction because no one would actually care. I did find that very interesting. I was like, yeah, okay, this was definitely written and published 8 years ago. I get it now. But overall, I still enjoyed it, and I'm happy to have added it to the books that I've read by Tessa Bailey. And yes, I know I just mentioned a book by Tessa Bailey, but I can't talk about short book recommendations without also recommending Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. This is a perfect Christmas romance novel that I very much enjoyed. Although I do think similarly to Chase Me, Window Shopping could have had more third act resolution, except not necessarily in the romance, just with another subplot that happened in this book. But overall, it was a very satisfactory romance novel and one that I would recommend you pick up during the holiday season. This one I am considering rereading during Christmas this year, as well as other books like Love Light Farms and A Merry Little Meet Cute, and so many other books. I believe that Tessa Bailey's also coming out with another one called Wreck the Halls, and I cannot wait for that one. But this is definitely one of the shorter Tessa Bailey books that I recommend. It's 248 pages, and usually the average Tessa Bailey novel is around 400. So Window Shopping definitely does make a great end of year read, especially if you're wanting to achieve a read count by the end of the year, or just like any readathon in general, or a Christmas themed readathon. This is like the perfect book for that. And another author that I would like to double feature in this video today is Haruki Murakami. Murakami has written a few under 300 page books, one of them being The Strange Library, and I would actually recommend The Strange Library to everyone. You don't need to be a Murakami fan to appreciate The Strange Library. It's actually a horror novella, but you can't really tell that by its really cool cover and by some of the features, but I think as you go through the book, you start to see that the images start to look a little bit creepy. It's a creepy story, but it is one that I really appreciated. I kind of wish that we got like a sequel to it, but I still liked the story that I got, and I was definitely creeped out by this one for sure. It is not my favorite Murakami work, but it is definitely one that I would recommend to those who are wanting to start somewhere with Murakami's writing. I would recommend this one to horror fans as well. And while there are a few Haruki Murakami novels that I could recommend for this topic, I've decided to choose After Dark as the second one that I am going to recommend. I really love this one, and I think this is another one that I would recommend to anyone. Even if you're not already a fan of Murakami, there are a few others that I could recommend, like After the Quake and South of the Border, West of the Sun. However, After Dark is the one that I recommend because I appreciated how thrilling this one was and how invested I got in this story. I believe I read it within one sitting. I could not put this book down. And even though I read After Dark around 3 years ago now, I still remember how invested and how engaged I was. It was an incredible read in my personal opinion. I believe that it's only a 200-page book. Let me double check that. Yeah, 201 pages. But it was definitely an unforgettable 201-page experience, and I would recommend this one to anyone who is wanting a good intense read, or for those who are wanting to get into Murakami but just don't know where to start. This one's a good one. And on a much lighter note, I also have to recommend Not My Type by Evie Mitchell. This is under 250 pages, and it is one of my favorite romance novels I have read this year. I am obsessed with it. So pretty much we are following our protagonist, who is a sexologist who runs a podcast, and for her podcast, she decides that she wants to do a segment on shibari, and that's where Jay comes in. He's a shibari instructor, and they hit it off, and I just love it. I loved their chemistry. I loved how patient they were with each other. I loved their communication, and I honestly just fell in love with Jay. I really enjoyed the story, and I would highly recommend it if you are wanting to read something new for a romance readathon, or if you are just wanting to discover a new author in general in the romance category. Evie Mitchell is absolutely amazing, and I really love the story so much. It holds a very special place in my heart, and I cannot wait to continue on with the All Access series. But this one is my favorite book of the series. I know everyone everyone likes the future books in the series a little bit more, but Not My Type holds a very special place in my heart. It is definitely one of the best romance novels I've read this year, and I would highly recommend it if you are wanting a quick read or if you were just wanting something different. And yet another romance contemporary fiction I have to recommend that just so happens to be under 300 pages is Where Good Girls Go to Die by Holly Renee. Now, you might find that Holly Renee's name is pretty familiar, and that is because she is the author of the Stars and Shadows series, which is another series that I have on my TBR, and the books in that series are also relatively short. I wouldn't know at the top of my head if any of them are under 300 pages, but it looks as though each book in the series could be the length of each book in the Good Girls series by Holly Renee. I believe that almost all of these books are under 300 pages. I think the last book might be bigger in length. I do know that the second book in the series is shorter from what I remember, but I really enjoyed the series. I believe that even though these books were pretty short, I think that they had a full story. And if you didn't already know, the Good Girls series follow a few work colleagues who happen to work at the same tattoo shop. It's just a really fun time. I specifically enjoyed this first book because it was a second chance romance, and it was a second chance romance after things went down back in high school. So yes, drama is to be expected, but I had a really good time with these. I was pleasantly surprised by them. I had no idea what to expect. I just literally picked these books up because their covers are stunning. These are the repackaged editions, by the way, and I'm like so obsessed with these beautiful covers. They are definitely some of the best book covers on my shelves personally, and I got them signed by Holly at Babe. I got to meet Holly, and Holly was absolutely sweet, and I'm so glad I got to read this series because I had such a fun time with it, and I kind of wish I read it before meeting Holly because I would have absolutely raved to her about how much I adore the Good Girls series. And I personally believe that this series is underhyped. I think that more romance readers need to pick this book series up because it's really fun, and I loved following these characters so much. I feel like going in for a reread already because they were great comfort reads. The second last short book that I would like to recommend is The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert. I loved this one. I found this to be absolutely wholesome. This is probably the most wholesome Katie Robert novel I've ever read. If you guys don't know, I started off with the Wicked Villain series by Katie Robert, and I found those to be really heavy. I could not binge read those at the time that I read them, so I thought that The Dragon's Bride was also going to hit me hard. However, it didn't hit me hard as much as it gave me the warm fuzzies, and I appreciate this book for doing that. I really want to read the rest of the books in the series, and I cannot wait to read The Kraken's Sacrifice and The Gargoyle's Captive. I'm specifically intrigued in The Gargoyle's Captive because I want to read more about gargoyles. I feel like there is a severe lack of them on my TBR, and I think after Crave, I have a new interest. And if the potential reading experience for the future books in the series happen to be anything like my reading experience with The Dragon's Bride, then sign me up. I'm so there. I love this book, and if you're wanting a good, wholesome monster romance, I definitely would recommend The Dragon's Bride because this one surprised me in a very good way. And the final short book recommendation I have to give today just so happens to be another monster romance because I just so happen to love my Beauty and the Beast inspired stories, and I believe that His Darkest Craving just so happens to be a Beauty and the Beast inspired story because it has elements of Beauty and the Beast, and I appreciate it. I love this story so much. In His Darkest Craving, we are following Sophie, who escapes her abusive marriage and moves to a cabin in a forest, and she just so happens to meet a beautiful forest monster who is so captivated by her, and it's just a tale of comfort. I just absolutely adore these two so much, and I appreciate that Sophie goes through a healing journey in this book, and I just love all of this for her. I love seeing that she can find happiness and that she is also very strong. This story meant so much to me, not just because Sophie got the happiness that she deserved, but also to see that she could build a life of happiness for herself. It packed a punch, and I find it to be absolutely unforgettable. How many pages is it? Oh my goodness, it's not even 200 pages. It's 196 pages. His Darkest Craving was definitely one of the books that made me realize that Tiffany Roberts was a new favorite author of mine. The first book I ever read from them, though, was Escaping Wonderland, and that, at the moment, is probably my favorite book by them because of how full that standalone story was. However, there are rumors going around that this companion series is going to continue. I know that it initially was meant to be a companion series, but for the longest time, this had only been a first book in a series, and if another book is coming, I would be so excited because I want more of this world and these characters, even if it's just for a cameo. I love these two so much and I really love this book. I would highly recommend it to those who love monster romance, or if you love Beauty and the Beast and if you are wanting to read a story of healing and also magic. And I definitely do think that more people need to read Tiffany Roberts, because even though I've only read 2 books by Tiffany Roberts, they are my new favorite author duo and I just need more people to check them out, because the 2 stories I've read from Tiffany Roberts blew my mind. And yes, I definitely need to read more of them, but I also need more people reading them, you know? So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the heart emoji with the second heart to kind of represent the smaller books that we love, you know? And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social medias. I'm at GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also at Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/gswizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later.
Started out with half and I flipped it in a double. Started out with half and I flipped it in a double.